The mother elephant's desperate trumpets echoed through Riverside Park as the massive snake wrapped around her baby. Maya the elephant had brought her calf to drink from the pond when the giant python struck without warning. Now she stood helpless, watching her little one struggle in the coils of death. "Oh my God, what is that thing?" shouted Sarah Jenkins as she jogged past the pond that sunny Saturday morning. The 35-year-old nurse stopped running when she saw the impossible sight. A snake, as thick as a tree trunk, had wrapped itself around a baby elephant while the mother elephant trumpeted in terror. "That's not possible," whispered Tom Rodriguez, who had been feeding ducks with his 6-year-old daughter. The construction worker grabbed his child and pulled her back, but his eyes stayed locked on the horrifying scene. "Snakes don't get that big around here." "Dad, what's happening to the baby elephant?" little Emma asked with tears in her eyes. She loved animals more than anything in the world, and seeing the baby elephant in danger broke her heart. Marcus Washington was painting the park benches when he heard the commotion. The 42-year-old maintenance worker had worked at Riverside Park for 15 years and had never seen anything like this. He dropped his paintbrush and ran toward the pond where a crowd was starting to gather. "Someone call 911, yelled Dr. Jennifer Walsh, who had been reading on a park bench. The 50-year-old veterinarian knew animals better than anyone, but had never faced a snake this size. Her hands shook as she pulled out her phone, but there was no signal. The giant snake was over 30 feet long, and its body was as thick as a car tire. Its scales gleamed in the morning sun like armor as it squeezed tighter around the baby elephant. The little calf's eyes were wide with fear, and it made soft crying sounds that would break anyone's heart. Maya the mother elephant was going crazy with worry. She trumpeted loudly and tried to grab the snake with her trunk, but every time she got close, the snake would hiss and show its massive fangs. Maya was afraid that if she attacked the wrong way, the snake might hurt her baby even more. "We can't just stand here and watch," said Sarah as tears ran down her face. "That baby is going to die if we don't do something." "But what can we do against that monster?" asked Tom. "Look at the size of that thing. It could kill us all." Marcus stepped forward with determination in his eyes. "I didn't serve 2 tours in Afghanistan to watch a baby elephant die in my own park." He rolled up his sleeves and looked at the group of strangers. "My name is Marcus, and I'm not leaving that baby to die." "Who's with me?" "I'm Sarah, and I'm a nurse," said the woman, wiping her tears. "I can help if anyone gets hurt." "I'm Tom and I work construction," said the man, still holding his daughter's hand. "I know how to handle dangerous situations." "I'm Dr. Walsh and I'm a vet," said the older woman. "I know elephant behavior and I might be able to help." Little Emma looked up at her father with big, brave eyes. "Dad, we have to save the baby elephant. It's scared and it needs our help." Tom knelt down and hugged his daughter. "Emma, you're right, but this is too dangerous for you. I need you to run to the park entrance and get help, okay?" "But Dad," Emma started to protest. "No, Emma, this is grown-up business. Go find a police officer or anyone who can call for help." "Can you do that for the baby elephant?" Emma nodded bravely and ran toward the park entrance as fast as her little legs could carry her. The 4 adults stood together, facing the giant snake. They had just met, but they were united by one goal: saving the baby elephant's life. "Okay, here's what I'm thinking," said Marcus, taking charge. "That snake is focused on the baby right now. If we can distract it somehow, maybe the mother elephant can grab her calf." "But how do we distract something that big?" asked Tom. Dr. Walsh stepped forward. "Snakes like that are cold-blooded. They need heat to stay active. If we could somehow cool it down or confuse it, we might have a chance." "The pond," said Sarah suddenly. "What if we could somehow get it into the deeper water?" "That's actually not a bad idea," said Dr. Walsh. "Large snakes can swim, but they're slower in water, and they might release their grip to avoid drowning." Maya the mother elephant seemed to understand that the humans were trying to help. She moved closer to them and touched Marcus gently with her trunk as if to say thank you for trying. "She knows we want to help," whispered Marcus with amazement in his voice. The snake sensed the humans getting closer and raised its massive head. Its eyes were cold and yellow like two evil moons. When it opened its mouth, they could see fangs as long as kitchen knives. "Dear God," whispered Tom. That thing could swallow a whole person. But Marcus didn't back down. "I've faced worse things than this snake." "We're not giving up," the snake suddenly moved faster than anyone expected. It kept its coils around the baby elephant, but struck out at Marcus with lightning speed. Marcus dove to the side, just as the massive head crashed into the ground where he had been standing. "Marcus!" screamed Sarah. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," Marcus called back as he rolled away. "But this thing is faster than it looks." Dr. Walsh was studying the snake carefully. "Wait a minute," she said. "Look at its belly. See those scales that look different?" "What about them?" asked Tom. "This snake is pregnant," Dr. Walsh said with shock in her voice. "She's not attacking because she's evil. She's trying to feed herself and her babies." This changed everything. The snake wasn't a monster. It was a desperate mother just like Maya, the elephant. "But that doesn't change the fact that she's killing the baby elephant," said Sarah. "No, but it means we might be able to reason with her somehow," said Dr. Walsh. "Both mothers just want to protect their babies." Maya seemed to understand what Dr. Walsh was saying. The mother elephant moved closer to the snake and made soft rumbling sounds. She was trying to talk to the other mother. The snake paused and looked at Maya with its cold eyes. For a moment the two mothers stared at each other, one trying to save her baby and one trying to feed hers. "This is incredible," whispered Dr. Walsh. "Maya is trying to communicate with her, but the moment of understanding didn't last long." The snake was too hungry and desperate to listen. It squeezed tighter around the baby elephant, and the little calf cried out in pain. "That's it," said Marcus. "I'm not waiting any longer." He picked up a large stick and started moving toward the snake. "If I can hit it in the head, maybe it will let go." "Marcus, don't," called Sarah. "It's too dangerous." But Marcus was already moving. He raised the stick above his head and brought it down as hard as he could on the snake's massive skull. The sound was like hitting a rock with a baseball bat. The snake's head whipped around toward Marcus with fury in its yellow eyes. It opened its mouth wide, showing those terrible fangs, and struck at him like lightning. This time Marcus wasn't fast enough. The snake's head hit him in the chest and knocked him backward into the pond with a huge splash. "Marcus!" screamed all three of the others at the same time. Marcus went under the water and didn't come back up right away. When he finally surfaced, he was gasping for air and his shirt was torn. "I'm okay," he called out. "But that thing hits harder than a truck." The snake had turned its attention back to the baby elephant, but now it was angry. It squeezed even tighter, and the little calf made a sound that broke everyone's heart. "We're running out of time," said Dr. Walsh. "That baby can't take much more." Maya, the mother elephant, was trumpeting louder than ever. She tried again to grab the snake with her trunk, but the snake snapped at her with its terrible fangs. That's when little Emma came running back with the most unexpected help anyone could imagine. "Dad," she called out. "I brought help." Behind her came running an old man with a long white beard and a walking stick. He looked like he was at least 80 years old, but he moved with surprising speed. "Who is that?" asked Tom. "He said his name is Professor Snake," Emma called back. "He knows all about snakes." The old man reached the group and immediately saw what was happening. His eyes went wide with recognition. "Merciful heavens," he said in a voice like old leather. "That's a Burmese python, but it's 3 times the normal size. Where did it come from?" "Does it matter?" asked Sarah. "Can you help us save the baby elephant?" Professor Snake studied the situation carefully. "Yes, but we need to work together, and we need to be very careful. This snake is not evil, it's just trying to survive. Tell that to the baby elephant," said Tom. "I understand your anger," said Professor Snake. But if we approach this wrong, we could make things much worse. Marcus had climbed out of the pond and rejoined the group. He was dripping wet, but determined as ever. "What do you need us to do, Professor?" he asked. Professor Snake pointed to different areas around the pond. "The snake is strongest at its middle, where it's wrapped around the baby, but it's weakest at its tail and head. If we can coordinate an attack on both ends at the same time, it might release the baby." "How do we attack something that big?" asked Dr. Walsh. "Professor," Snake smiled for the first time, "we don't attack it. We trick it." He explained his plan. Quickly, Tom and Marcus would make noise and movement at the snake's tail end, while Sarah and Dr. Walsh would create a distraction near its head. Professor Snake would use his knowledge of snake behavior to predict how it would react. "What about Maya?" asked Sarah, looking at the mother elephant. "Maya is the key to everything," said Professor Snake. "At exactly the right moment she needs to grab her baby and pull." Maya seemed to understand. She positioned herself as close as possible to her baby and waited for the signal. "Everyone ready?" asked Professor Snake. They all nodded, even though they were terrified. "Remember, this snake is a mother just trying to survive," said Professor Snake. "We're not trying to hurt her. We're trying to save everyone." The plan began. Tom and Marcus started throwing rocks and sticks at the snake's tail while making as much noise as possible. The snake's head immediately turned toward the commotion. At that same moment, Sarah and Dr. Walsh began waving their arms and shouting. At the other end, the snake was confused about which threat to focus on. Professor Snake watched the snake's body language carefully. "Now Maya," he shouted. Now Maya reached out with her powerful trunk and grabbed her baby. But the snake held on tight, and suddenly Maya was in a tug of war with the giant python. "It's not working," cried Sarah. "The snake is too strong." But Professor Snake wasn't giving up. "Everyone into the water," he shouted. Force the snake to choose between the baby and defending itself. It was crazy, but they all ran into the pond. Together, the cold water shocked them, but they kept moving toward the snake. The giant python had never faced so many threats at once. Its small brain couldn't process all the danger and confusion. Maya gave one more tremendous pull with her trunk. At exactly the same moment, the snake decided it needed to defend itself from all the humans in the water. The snake released the baby elephant and whipped its massive body toward the humans. Maya immediately pulled her baby to safety on the far side of the pond, but now the humans were in terrible danger. The angry snake was coming straight at them, with its mouth wide open, showing those deadly fangs. "Swim!" shouted Marcus. "Swim for your lives!" They all swam as fast as they could toward the shore, but the snake was faster in the water than they expected. It was gaining on them quickly. Tom looked back and saw the snake was about to catch Sarah. Without thinking, he turned around and swam back toward the danger. "Tom, no!" screamed Sarah. But Tom grabbed Sarah and pushed her toward shore just as the snake's massive head crashed into the water where she had been swimming. The snake's mouth snapped shut just inches from Tom's face. He could smell its terrible breath and see the evil intelligence in its yellow eyes. "Tom!" screamed his daughter Emma from the shore. Tom thought he was going to die, but then something amazing happened. Maya, the mother elephant, charged into the pond with a tremendous splash. The huge elephant grabbed the snake behind its head with her trunk and lifted the entire front half of its body out of the water. The snake writhed and twisted, but Maya was incredibly strong. Maya looked the snake directly in its yellow eyes and made a sound that was part trumpet and part growl. She was telling the snake that if it wanted to hurt her human friends, it would have to go through her first. The snake seemed to understand. It stopped struggling and hung limp in Maya's grip. Maya carried the snake to the far end of the pond and gently placed it on the shore. The snake looked back at all of them for a long moment, then slowly slithered away into the woods. Everyone stood in the shallow water, breathing hard and looking at each other with amazement. "Is everyone okay?" asked Dr. Walsh. "I think so," said Marcus, checking himself for injuries. "That was the bravest thing I've ever seen," Sarah said to Tom. "You saved my life." Tom was shaking from the cold water and fear. "I couldn't let that thing hurt you." Little Emma ran to her father and hugged him tight. "Dad, you're a hero." Professor Snake waded over to Maya and her baby. The little elephant was weak but alive. Maya nuzzled her baby gently and made soft rumbling sounds of comfort. "The baby is going to be okay," said Dr. Walsh after examining the little elephant. "She has some bruises, but nothing is broken." Maya walked over to each of the humans and touched them gently with her trunk. It was her way of saying thank you. "I can't believe what just happened," said Sarah. "We faced a giant snake and lived to tell about it," said Marcus. "More than that," said Professor Snake with wisdom in his old eyes. "We learned that sometimes the scariest monsters are just frightened mothers trying to protect their babies." "What happened to the snake?" asked Emma. "Will it come back?" Professor Snake shook his head. "That snake will find somewhere else to live where there are no elephants or people. It learned today that this is not a safe place for it." As they walked out of the pond together, they realized they were no longer strangers. They had become a family through their shared brave adventure. "I want to stay in touch with all of you," said Sarah. "What we did today was special." "Agreed," said Tom. "Emma will want to hear about Maya and her baby for years to come." Marcus looked back at Maya and her baby drinking peacefully from the pond. "You know what I learned today?" "What?" asked Dr. Walsh. "I learned that being a hero isn't about being big or strong or having weapons," Marcus said. "It's about caring enough about others to risk everything to help them. Even when you're scared," added Sarah. "Especially when you're scared," said Tom. Professor Snake nodded approvingly. "The bravest people are not those who feel no fear. The bravest people are those who feel fear but act anyway because doing the right thing matters more than being safe." As they reached the park entrance, they could hear sirens in the distance. Emma's call for help had finally reached the authorities. "Should we wait and explain what happened?" asked Dr. Walsh. "Let's let Maya and her baby have some peace," said Professor Snake. "The park rangers will take good care of them," as they said goodbye to each other. They all knew their lives had been changed forever. They had faced something impossible and discovered they were braver than they ever imagined. Sarah went back to her job as a nurse with a new understanding of courage. Every time she faced a difficult situation at the hospital, she remembered the day she helped save a baby elephant. Tom continued working construction, but he also started volunteering at the local zoo. He wanted Emma to learn more about animals and conservation. Emma grew up to become a wildlife veterinarian dedicated to protecting elephants. Marcus kept working at the park, but now he was like a guardian watching over Maya and her baby. He made sure they always had clean water and safe places to rest. Dr. Walsh started a wildlife rescue program that helped injured animals throughout the region. She never forgot how Maya had saved them all by showing courage when it mattered most. Professor Snake turned out to be a retired zoologist who had spent his life studying reptiles. He used his experience with the giant python to help authorities prepare for other unusual wildlife encounters. Maya and her baby continued living peacefully in Riverside Park. The baby grew up strong and healthy, and Maya taught her about the day when humans and elephants worked together to defeat a giant snake. Sometimes on quiet mornings, Maya would walk to the edge of the pond and look toward the place where her human friends had risked everything to save her baby. She would make a soft rumbling sound that seemed to say thank you to the wind. The story of the brave heroes who faced the giant snake spread throughout the community. Parents told it to their children as a bedtime story about courage and friendship. But for the 5 people who lived through that incredible day, it was more than just a story. It was proof that ordinary people can do extraordinary things when they choose love over fear. Years later, when they would meet for their annual reunion at Riverside Park, they would look at Maya and her family and remember the most important lesson of all. Sometimes being a hero means fighting monsters. But sometimes it means understanding that even monsters are just frightened creatures trying to survive in a dangerous world. And sometimes the greatest victory is not defeating your enemy, but finding a way for everyone to live in peace. That day at Riverside Park, 5 strangers became heroes, not because they were stronger than the giant snake, but because they were brave enough to care about a baby elephant they had never met before. Their courage saved 2 lives that day, the baby elephant and the giant snake. But most importantly, they discovered that the greatest adventures happen when people choose to help each other instead of walking away. Maya still lives in Riverside Park with her family, and the giant snake found a new home deep in the wilderness, where it could live peacefully without threatening anyone. And sometimes late at night, when the park is quiet and the stars are bright, Maya remembers the humans who taught her that friendship can overcome any obstacle and love can defeat any fear. And so the legend of the brave heroes and the giant snake lives on in Riverside Park, where a small bronze plaque now sits by the pond. It reads, "In memory of the day ordinary people became heroes by choosing courage over fear and love over hate." Every year on that same Saturday morning, Maya brings her family to the pond and touches the plaque gently with her trunk, while children gather around to hear the true story of how 5 strangers proved that when good people stand together, no challenge is too great, and no act of kindness is too small to change the world forever. As the years passed, Riverside Park became more than just a sanctuary for wildlife. It became a place of pilgrimage, a reminder of what humanity could achieve when compassion outweighed fear. The plaque by the pond grew weathered by rain and wind, but its message never faded. Visitors came from far and wide, children and adults alike, to hear the story told by park guides, volunteers, and even by those who had lived it. Each time the tale was spoken aloud, it breathed life back into that extraordinary day, reminding people that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. Emma, now a respected veterinarian, often returned with her own children. She would kneel beside them, pointing toward Maya and her family, and tell them about the day her own childhood changed forever. She didn't sugarcoat the fear she had felt when the snake rose from the shadows, but she always emphasized how, even in that terrifying moment, people who had been strangers trusted each other enough to act as one. For her, the story was not about triumph over danger, but about unity, empathy, and sacrifice. And her children grew up believing that true strength lay in kindness. Sarah, older but still full of energy, visited the park every year after her retirement. She would sit on a bench overlooking the pond and reflect on her career as a nurse. So many nights she had drawn courage from her memory of the baby elephant clinging to life. That day had taught her that every small act of care could ripple outward to change the course of the future. She often told young nurses and doctors that bravery wasn't reserved for heroes in stories. It was something they all carried inside, waiting for the moment it was needed. Tom, strong and weathered from years of building, never stopped volunteering. At the zoo, his love for animals grew into advocacy, and he worked tirelessly to ensure conservation became part of his community's values. Sometimes he would take school groups to Riverside Park, introducing them to Maya's herd. He would smile as the children's eyes widened in wonder, knowing he was planting the seeds of respect and responsibility for the natural world in the next generation. Marcus remained steadfast at the park, his bond with Maya unbroken. To visitors, he seemed like just another ranger, but those who knew his story recognized the depth of his watchfulness. He wasn't only protecting elephants, he was guarding a legacy. When asked why he stayed all these years, Marcus would simply reply, "Because some promises aren't meant to be broken." Dr. Walsh's wildlife rescue program blossomed beyond anything she had ever dreamed. Animals once left to suffer in silence were now given a second chance. To her, every rescue was a continuation of that first day, a way of honoring the elephant who had saved her and the snake who had been spared. She often told her students, saving one life means saving countless others, because life always finds a way to give back. And then there was Professor Snake, who never minded the teasing nickname. He became a quiet legend himself, teaching about reptiles and ecosystems, reminding everyone that even creatures feared or misunderstood had a role to play. He often ended his lectures with a story of the great serpent of Riverside Park, not as a monster, but as a living being whose fate had been intertwined with humans, elephants alike. His voice would soften as he told his students, "We do not get to choose which lives matter, they all do." Through them, the lesson of that day spread far beyond the park's borders. What had once been a desperate battle became a beacon of hope, a reminder that courage is not loud or boastful, but steady and unyielding. It lives in nurses at hospital bedsides, in construction workers teaching children about animals, in rangers watching over herds, in scientists mending what is broken, and in teachers guiding young hearts to see the value of every creature. And Maya, wise and steady, lived long enough to see her calf grow into a proud matriarch. Her family thrived, roaming peacefully within the park, a living testament to the power of compassion. On quiet mornings, she still walked to the pond, brushing her trunk across the plaque as though acknowledging not just the words etched in bronze, but the souls who had stood beside her when the world seemed darkest. The story of Riverside Park was no longer just a legend, it was a living truth, passed from one generation to the next. And if you ever visit, you will hear it too, whispered in the rustle of leaves, echoed in the rumble of elephants, and carried in the laughter of children who grow up believing that bravery, kindness, and love can change the world. So remember this: courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the choice to act when fear would hold you back. Just as 5 strangers once proved by saving a baby elephant, we too can rise above our doubts and make a difference. The world still needs brave hearts, kind hands, and hopeful voices. If this story touched you, don't let it end here. Share it with others, spread its message, and let it inspire courage in someone else. Like, subscribe, and share, because the world is always in need of stories that remind us of our power to choose love over fear.